First contact under fire. The Nixian diplomatic vessel, Starweaver, tumbled through Earth's upper atmosphere, its normally pristine crystalline hull marred by plasma burns and debris impacts. Ambassador Lyra Telverin gripped her command chair as emergency sirens wailed through the ship's neural interface network. Her iridescent scales flickered between shades of distress, purple fear bleeding into red anger. Status report. She called out to her crew of 4, each chosen for this mission to establish first contact with emerging civilizations in the Orion Arm. Now they might not survive to make contact with anyone. Primary power core is destabilizing, reported Chief Engineer Kex, his mechanical appendages flying over holographic displays. The pirates' quantum disruptors did more damage than we thought. We need to land now, or we'll break apart. The Starweaver had been ambushed just outside the Sol system by the notorious Black Void pirates, while the diplomatic vessel's advanced shields had protected them from complete destruction. The damage was severe. They'd managed to escape using an experimental phase drive, but the jump had stranded them in Earth's gravity well with failing systems. What about our stealth systems? Lyra demanded. The mission protocols were clear. No premature contact with pre-FTL civilizations. Earth wasn't ready for official first contact according to the Alliance's careful calculations. Partially functional, replied Security Officer Mira, her crystalline form refracting worried patterns of light. We can mask our energy signature, but visual cloaking is offline. Lyra's secondary hearts clenched. They'd have to risk it. Find us somewhere isolated to set down, preferably in darkness. The ship's AI identify a landing zone in a region the humans called Montana, a sparsely populated area with enough flat terrain for their damaged landing systems to manage. As they descended through clouds heavy with impending snow, Lyra watched the primitive human settlement patterns below with a mixture of fascination and concern. Their technology level was advancing rapidly but unevenly. They hadn't even achieved unified planetary governance yet. The Starweaver touched down hard in a valley between snow-capped peaks, skidding several hundred meters before coming to rest in a copse of pine trees. The impact knocked out their remaining power, plunging the ship into darkness broken only by emergency chemical lighting and the crew's natural bioluminescence. Everyone alive. Lyra called out, running a quick medical scan through her neural link. Her crew responded in the affirmative, though Kex had suffered some damage to his cybernetic components in the landing. We need to assess the damage and effect repairs quickly, Lyra said, pulling up their location data. We're only about 20 kilometers from a human settlement. It's just a matter of time before someone notices us. As if in response to her words, their passive sensors detected approaching ground vehicles, several of them, moving fast along the crude roads that crisscrossed this wilderness. They're not military or law enforcement, reported Mira, analyzing the sensor data. Civilian vehicles, but heavily modified. They appear to be what humans call off-road vehicles. Lyra made a quick decision. Their ship was crippled, their power core was destabilizing, and they had little choice. Power up universal translators and prepare for possible contact. Remember your diplomatic training. No threatening moves, no displays of superior technology unless absolutely necessary. We don't want to frighten them. The rumble of internal combustion engines grew louder as the vehicles crested a nearby hill. Through the Starweaver's viewport, Lyra could see a collection of rugged wheeled vehicles, trucks and SUVs, according to their database, approaching cautiously through the snowy darkness. Their powerful lights illuminated the ship's crystalline hull, making it sparkle like a massive diamond that had fallen from the sky. Well, Lyra said, straightening her diplomatic robes, this isn't exactly how I plan to make first contact with humanity. But perhaps we can still salvage something from this situation. She activated the ship's external speakers and prepared to address the humans who were now parking in a loose circle around their vessel. Let's hope, she added quietly, that these humans are as resourceful as our studies suggest, because right now, they may be our only hope of getting off this planet alive. Through the view screen, She watched as the first humans emerged from their vehicles. Tall, hardy-looking individuals wrapped in thick winter clothing. They moved with purpose but not panic, studying the ship with what appeared to be professional interest rather than fear. Perhaps, Lyra thought, this unexpected encounter might work out after all. The Starweaver's hybrid core hummed with a unique resonance throughout the ship, a constant reminder of what humans and Nixians had achieved together. Chief Engineer Kex was running another diagnostic, his mechanical limbs interfacing directly with the ship's systems. "Ambassador," he reported, "the core's efficiency has actually increased by another 3% since our departure from the surface. The human containment designs are adapting, learning. I've never seen anything like it." Dr. Wheeler grinned. "That would be Rachel's quantum feedback algorithms at work. We figured if we were building something new, why not make it capable of evolving?" Security Officer Mira, who had been quietly observing crystalline form refracting starlight, finally spoke. "This is what troubles our superiors most about humans. You don't just solve problems, you transform them into opportunities. It's unpredictable." "Isn't that exactly what the Alliance needs?" Sarah pushed off a wall, floating closer to the observation window. "You've got amazing technology, centuries ahead of us in some areas. But from what you've told us, your development has plateaued. You're stuck in patterns of thinking that go back generations." Lyra's scales flickered with reluctant agreement. "Our civilization values stability, predictability. We advance through careful iteration, not revolutionary leaps." "Which is why you need us," Wheeler interjected, pulling up a holographic display of the hybrid core's specifications. "Look at this design. It's not just a power source. It's a perfect example of how our different approaches can complement each other. Your precision and our creativity. Your advanced technology and our ability to think outside conventional boundaries." The ship's neural interface suddenly pulsed with new data. Kex's mechanical eyes widened. The core just underwent another adaptive cycle. Power efficiency is now 15% above original Nixian specifications, with no loss in stability. This changes everything we thought we knew about quantum energy dynamics." "That's because you were too focused on perfecting the existing systems," Sarah explained. "Sometimes you need to break things down and build them back up differently. That's what we do at the Collective. We take apart the rules to understand why they exist in the first place." Lyra moved away from the window, her robes floating gracefully in the zero gravity. "When I was assigned this mission, I was told to study primitive civilizations to assess their potential for eventual contact. Instead, I find myself being taught lessons that could reshape the Alliance itself." "Ambassador," Mira interrupted, her crystalline form pulsing with urgency. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Alliance Command. They're requesting a full report on the hybrid core technology." Sarah and Wheeler exchanged glances. This was the moment they'd been worried about. Would the Alliance try to suppress this advancement, seeing it as a threat to their technological superiority? But Lyra's scales had shifted to a color they'd never seen before, a brilliant, shimmering gold that seemed to radiate determination. "Prepare a complete technical package, including full credit to the Steelheart Collective for their contributions. It's time for the Alliance to learn what I have." That true advancement comes not from careful isolation, but from embracing the unexpected. She turned to Sarah and Wheeler. "Your collective has taught us more than just new engineering principles. You've shown us that innovation flourishes best when different perspectives collide. The Alliance has spent centuries trying to perfect what we know. You've reminded us of the importance of exploring what we don't know." "And what about Earth?" Sarah asked. "Are we still classified as a pre-FTL civilization to be studied from afar?" Lyra's scales rippled with what they now recognized as amusement. "I believe that classification became obsolete the moment your primitive containment fields stabilized our quantum matrix. My recommendation to the Alliance will be to establish a permanent technological exchange program. Strictly unofficial, of course, working through organizations like your collective. Unofficial channels, Wheeler mused. Working in the shadows, pushing boundaries while staying off the radar. Sounds like business as usual for us. The Earth continued its slow rotation below them, clouds swirling across its surface in complex patterns. In the ship's hybrid core, human ingenuity and alien technology continued their dance of adaptation and evolution, creating something greater than either civilization could have achieved alone. At Lyra's questioning look, Sarah grinned. The collective's got a reputation for testing experimental vehicles. As far as anyone else needs to know, this is just another test prototype. We got friends in the local military who look the other way as long as we stay in our designated test zones. The ambassador's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a determined blue. Very well. We place ourselves in your hands. Over the next hour, Sarah's team worked with practiced efficiency. They deployed their mobile camouflage nets, designed to fool both visual and electronic surveillance, and set up their standard experimental test site markers. By the time the military helicopters arrived, all they saw was another of the collective's weird projects surrounded by trucks and equipment. The helicopters circled twice before departing. Sarah knew they'd be logging this incident, but the collective's long-established presence in the area and their various military contracts provided excellent cover. Impressive, Lyra said, emerging from the ship once the helicopters were gone. You maintained operational security while technically telling the truth. A very diplomatic solution. Speaking of diplomatic, Sarah replied, we should move this discussion somewhere more private. Our main facility is hidden in an old missile silo about 10 miles from here. We can work on your ship's repairs there, away from prying eyes. As her team began preparing to move the alien vessel, Sarah noticed Dr. Wheeler and Kex were still deep in technical discussion, holographic displays mixing with scratch diagrams in the snow. The human and alien engineers had already moved past any cultural barriers, united by their shared passion for solving complex problems. You know, Sarah said to Lyra, I think this might be the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Your technology combined with our creativity. There's no telling what we might achieve. The ambassador's scales shimmered with what Sarah was learning to recognize as amusement. Indeed, though I suspect my superiors back home might have some concerns about sharing advanced technology with humans. No offense, Ambassador, but looking at your power core, I'd say we've got some things to teach you too. Sometimes, the most elegant solutions come from having to work with limited resources. As if to emphasize her point, there was a cheer from the engineers. Wheeler had apparently just solved a critical problem with the containment system using parts salvaged from old Tesla batteries and a modified quantum field generator. Perhaps, Lyra admitted, her scales now showing patterns Sarah hadn't seen before. We have more to learn from Earth than we realized. Innovation under pressure. The interior of the Steelheart Collective's repurposed missile silo hummed with activity. The crystalline form of the Starweaver now rested in what had once been the launch bay, surrounded by a maze of jury-rigged equipment. The vessel's failing power core cast shifting patterns of light across the reinforced concrete walls, creating an otherworldly atmosphere in the underground facility. Dr. Wheeler wiped sweat from his brow as he studied the holographic readouts. The good news is we've stabilized the immediate containment problem. The bad news is the core itself is degrading. We need a more permanent solution. Chief Engineer Kex's mechanical appendages whirred as he processed this information. The core's quantum matrix is collapsing. Under normal circumstances, we would need a Nixian fabrication facility to generate a replacement. Sarah Chen, who had been monitoring their progress, stepped forward. But these aren't normal circumstances. What if we think about this differently? Instead of trying to replicate your technology exactly, what if we create a hybrid system? The silo's main display screen filled with diagrams as Wheeler pulled up schematics of the collective's experimental power systems. We've been working on zero-point energy extraction. It's crude compared to your quantum core, but the principles are similar. Fascinating, Kex said, his cybernetic eyes scanning the human designs. You've approached the same fundamental physics from a completely different direction. These containment methods, they're unorthodox, but remarkably stable. Ambassador Lyra observed the exchange with growing interest. Her scales had shifted to a deep violet, a color Sarah had learned indicated intense concentration. You believe you can adapt your technology to power our ship? Not exactly, Sarah replied. We're going to create something entirely new. Doc, show them Project Phoenix. Wheeler brought up another set of schematics. We've been developing a fusion-based power system that incorporates quantum field manipulation. It's not as elegant as your core, but it's incredibly resilient. If we combine this with your quantum matrix technology, the efficiency would be lower, Kex interjected, but the stability would actually exceed our standard cores. His mechanical limbs moved rapidly as he worked with the holographic interface. Look at these simulations. The redundancy inherent in your crude systems could prevent the kind of cascade failure that damaged our original core. The next 12 hours became a blur of intense collaboration. The collective's engineers worked alongside the Nixian crew, breaking down technological barriers that had seemed insurmountable. Human ingenuity met alien expertise, creating solutions that neither civilization had envisioned alone. Rachel Martinez, the collective's quantum mechanics expert, discovered that their primitive magnetic containment fields could be modified to support Nixian quantum matrices. Tom Blackhawk, their materials specialist, found ways to reinforce the crystalline conduits using carbon nanotubes produced in the Silo's fabrication lab. But it wasn't just about the technology. As they worked, barriers between species began to dissolve. The Nixians learned to appreciate human intuition and creativity, while the humans absorbed alien scientific principles that would have taken them decades to discover on their own. Security Officer Mira, despite her initial reservations, found herself impressed by the human security protocols. The collective had developed sophisticated methods for staying off the grid, combining high-tech countermeasures with simple misdirection. Your species, she noted to Sarah, excels at hiding in plain sight. The breakthrough came near dawn. Dr. Wheeler and Kex had finally solved the power transfer equation, creating a hybrid core that pulsed with both Nixian quantum energy and human-designed plasma containment fields. The light it cast was unlike anything either species had seen before, a perfect blend of both worlds' technologies. It's beautiful, Lyra said, her scales shimmering with iridescent patterns of joy and wonder. But will it work? Only one way to find out, Sarah replied. Kex, Doctor, start the power-up sequence. A hybrid core hummed to life, its energy readings quickly stabilizing at levels that exceeded their theoretical predictions. The Starweaver's systems, after initial confusion, adapted to the new power source. The ship's neural interface network came online, displaying readouts in both Nixian and human formats. Power output at 110% of original specifications, Kex announced, his mechanical appendages dancing with excitement. Stability rating. This can't be right. The core is actually more stable than our original design. Wheeler nodded, checking his own readings. The redundancy built into our containment systems is acting as a natural dampener for quantum fluctuations. We couldn't have planned it better if we tried. No, Lyra corrected. We couldn't have planned it at all. This level of innovation only happened because we were forced to work together, to combine our different approaches. Her scales shifted to a new color, one that none of the humans had seen before. Perhaps there's a lesson in that. Sarah watched as her team began running final diagnostics on the hybrid core. You know, she said to Lyra, once word gets back to your people about this, they're going to have to reconsider their assessment of Earth as a pre-FTL civilization. The ambassador's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. Indeed, though I suspect this collaboration may have changed more than just our technological assessment of humanity. Outside the silo, the Montana dawn was breaking over the mountains. But inside, human and alien alike were too absorbed in their shared achievement to notice. They had created something unprecedented, not just a new power core, but a bridge between civilizations. Teaching the teachers. High in orbit above Earth, aboard the newly repaired Starweaver, Ambassador Lyra Telverin stood at the ship's observation window. Her scales rippled with complex emotions as she watched the blue planet rotate slowly below. Behind her, Sarah Chen and Dr. Wheeler floated in the zero-gravity environment, their expressions a mix of wonder and professional curiosity. "I still can't believe you invited us up here," Sarah said, adjusting to the weightlessness. "Isn't this breaking about a dozen of your non-interference protocols?" Lyra's scales shifted to a contemplative blue. "Perhaps, but after what your collective has shown us, I believe some protocols deserve to be reconsidered." The Starweaver's hull creaked ominously in the cold mountain air, and warning indicators showed the power core's containment field weakening further. They had perhaps hours before catastrophic failure. Lyra took a deep breath, centered herself as she'd been trained, and prepared to do something no Nixian diplomat had done before. Ask a pre-FTL species for help. "Open the main hatch," she ordered. "Let's go meet our neighbors." The mechanics of trust. Sarah Chen killed the engine of her heavily modified Ford F-350 and studied the crystalline spacecraft through night vision binoculars. 20 years as the leader of the Steelheart Collective had taught her to assess situations before acting. What she saw both thrilled and concerned her. The vessel's hull was clearly of alien manufacture, but the damage patterns suggested technology she recognized: plasma scoring, impact fractures, and what looked suspiciously like a failing power core. "What's your read, Doc?" she asked the man beside her. Dr. James Wheeler, once a prominent nuclear physicist before choosing to go dark with the collective, adjusted his thermal imaging display. "That power signature, it's incredibly advanced, but the containment's failing. Similar principles to our reactor designs, just several centuries ahead. We've got maybe 6 hours before it goes critical." The main hatch of the vessel opened with a pneumatic hiss, releasing a cloud of vapor into the frigid Montana night. Sarah watched as 4 figures emerged, and despite her years of preparing for the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, she still felt her breath catch. The aliens were beautifully alien. The apparent leader wore flowing robes that seemed to shift colors in the truck's headlights. Her scales, Sarah assumed it was of her, sparkled like opals, and she moved with an almost liquid grace. Behind her came what appeared to be some kind of cyborg, its mechanical parts gleaming dully, followed by a being that seemed to be made of living crystal, and finally a more humanoid figure with 4 arms. "Remember," Sarah broadcast to her team over their secure radio channel, "we're about to make history here, but more importantly, we've got people in trouble. That's what the collective does. We help. Doesn't matter if they're from Earth or the far side of the galaxy." She stepped out of her truck, making sure her movements were slow and deliberate. The alien leader approached with similar caution, and Sarah noticed she kept her hands visible in what seemed to be a universal gesture of peace. "I am Ambassador Lyra Telverin of the Nixian Alliance," the alien said in perfect English, though Sarah noticed a slight delay between lip movements and sound, some kind of translation technology. "We require assistance." Sarah nodded, maintaining her calm exterior while her mind raced with the implications of this encounter. "Sarah Chen, Steelheart Collective. We're picking up some dangerous power readings from your ship. If you'll let us help, we've got the expertise and equipment to prevent a catastrophe." The ambassador's scales shifted to a deeper hue. "You can detect our power core's condition. Your technology is more advanced than our records indicated. We've got our tricks," Sarah replied with a slight smile. "When you live off the grid, you learn to improvise. Doc, what do you need?" Dr. Wheeler was already pulling equipment from his truck. "The principles should be similar to our containment systems, just need to adapt our tools to their tech. But we'll need to work fast." The cyborg alien, who introduced himself as Chief Engineer Kex, stepped forward with obvious interest in Wheeler's equipment. "Your tools are primitive, but I see the underlying principles. Perhaps together. Sarah watched as the two engineers, human and alien, fell into the universal language of technology. Wheeler was already sketching diagrams in the snow while Kex projected holographic schematics of the ship's systems. Your engineers understand our technology far more quickly than should be possible for a pre-FTL species, Ambassador Lyra observed. Sarah shrugged. The collective attracts people who think differently. We've got former NASA scientists, experimental engineers, quantum physicists, all folks who got tired of being held back by red tape and corporate interests. Out here, we're free to push the boundaries. The crystalline alien. Security Officer Mira suddenly tensed. Aircraft approaching. Military pattern. Already? Sarah checked her own sensors. Damn, they're faster than usual. Must have picked up your landing on satellite. She made a quick decision. Ambassador, we can handle this, but you need to trust us. Get your crew back inside except for Kex. We'll hide your ship in plain sight. You know, Sarah said, watching her home planet from orbit. When we started the collective, we thought we were just creating a place where engineers could work freely, without constraints. We never imagined we'd end up teaching advanced aliens how to think differently about technology. And we, Lyra replied, her scales shimmering with newfound wisdom, never imagined we would learn so much from those we came to teach. A bridge between stars. 3 months after the Starweaver's emergency landing, the abandoned missile silo that housed the Steelheart Collective had transformed. Hidden beneath its mundane exterior, the facility had become a nexus of unprecedented cooperation between two civilizations. The main laboratory now hosted a remarkable sight. A team of Nixian scientists worked alongside human engineers, their differences forgotten in the shared pursuit of innovation. The hybrid core technology had proven to be just the beginning. The latest test results are in, Rachel Martinez announced, her holographic display showing a complex matrix of quantum fluctuations. The new communications array successfully transmitted data through subspace using less than a tenth of the power required by standard Nixian systems. Ambassador Lyra, who had extended her emergency diplomatic mission indefinitely, watched the humans and Nixians celebrate together. Her scales shimmered with pride and something else. Hope. The Alliance Council is still trying to process our latest report, she confided to Sarah Chen. Some members are pushing for immediate official contact with Earth. Others are terrified of how quickly you're advancing. Sarah laughed. Tell them not to worry. We're not interested in defending the Galactic Order. The collective has always worked best in the shadows, pushing boundaries quietly. That's what concerns them most. Lyra replied, her scales flickering with amusement. You've demonstrated that a small group of humans, working with limited resources, can match or exceed technologies that took us centuries to perfect. Imagine what your entire species could do with full access to Alliance knowledge. The silo's secure communication system chimed. Another encrypted transmission from one of the growing network of unofficial collaboration sites. After the success of the hybrid core, other independent research groups across Earth had been quietly contacted. The collective had become a model for a new kind of cultural exchange, operating in the spaces between official channels. Chief Engineer Kex, who had requested permanent assignment to Earth, was teaching a group of human engineers the principles of quantum crystallography. But more importantly, he was learning from them, absorbing their intuitive leaps of logic, their willingness to question established principles. The Council doesn't understand. Lyra continued, watching the exchange of ideas happening around them. They think we're teaching you our technology. They don't realize that the real transformation is happening to us. Security Officer Mira, who had developed an unexpected passion for human music, added her perspective. Our civilization had become crystallized, like my own form, beautiful but rigid. Humans are teaching us to be fluid again, to adapt and evolve. Dr. Wheeler joined them, carrying a device that seemed to defy physics, a perfect blend of human creativity and Nixian precision. We've completed the prototype for the planetary defense system, completely passive, virtually undetectable, but capable of protecting Earth from any hostile ships that might stumble across us. Protecting Earth's independence while preserving the appearance of a pre-FTL civilization. Sarah nodded. Perfect. And giving us time, Lyra added. Time for both our civilizations to grow together naturally, without the shock of sudden official contact. The hybrid core hummed in its housing, its unique frequency a constant reminder of what was possible when different worlds collided. Above them, hidden in orbit, the Star Weaver had become a symbol of this new partnership, its systems now a complex blend of human and Nixian technology, more capable than either species had thought possible. You know what the best part is? Sarah said, watching a young human engineer excitedly explain a new concept to her Nixian counterpart. None of this was planned. No committees, no official protocols, no careful diplomatic arrangements. Just people from different worlds coming together to solve problems. Lyra's scales shifted to that now familiar goal of determination. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson we've learned from humanity. Sometimes the most important advances come not from careful planning, but from embracing the unexpected. The secure communication system chimed again. More innovations, more collaborations, more bridges being built between stars. In hidden places around the globe, human ingenuity and alien wisdom were combining in ways that would gradually reshape both civilizations. They'll remember this moment, Mira observed, her crystalline form refracting the light of another successful experiment. When humanity finally takes its official place among the stars, they'll look back and realize it began here, not with grand ceremonies or fleet deployments, but with a damaged ship and a group of unconventional engineers. Sarah smiled, watching her dream of pushing technological boundaries transform into something far greater. We came from different worlds, but we're building something new together, something neither of us could have imagined alone. Above them, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that the gap between them was being bridged, one innovation at a time, by those who dared to reach across the void and find not aliens, but friends. In the end, the story of the Steelheart Collective and the Star Weaver would become legend, not just a tale of first contact, but a testament to what becomes possible when different worlds collide and choose to grow together rather than apart.